Hey guys, coming at you today with a super simple and delicious chocolate cake recipe. Some of you may have heard it called Wacky cake, depression cake, crazy cake. I call it a delicious, sugar-free, gluten-free, egg-free keto chocolate cake recipe. So, let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining me. My name's Alycia. I'm a pastry chef with a sweet tooth, and now I own a keto gluten-free bakery, and I'm here to show you all the tips and tricks on how to make the best recipes possible. So if you enjoy my recipes, please hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, leave me comments, and share my recipes with your friends, family, social media groups. It all helps me bring you new recipes every week. Today, a super simple recipe. This recipe was literally a recipe from back in the day when the eggs were scarce, no milk, no butter, or it was very expensive for that stuff. So it's a cake made with water, oil, normally flour, cocoa, and sugar. But I made it keto, so let's jump right into the recipe. This cake makes an 8x8 pan, so use whatever 8x8 you like. I have a silicone pan. I used a glass pan upstairs when I did a couple tests because I had to make a cake for my mother-in-law's birthday, and she's gluten-free anyways, so I thought I would try making this cake. It says not to grease it, but if you want it to come out nicely, I would. So I'm gonna grease this 8x8 pan here. Problem with silicone is it's floppy, so onto a sheet tray of some kind. Preheat oven to 350 because this doesn't take very long to throw together. Like I said, this is a very simple cake. You really don't have to use measurements. I think it'll be fine if you just do cup measurements for this, but I'm doing a video and always want things to come out the right way and as good as they can. So I am definitely going to be using the scale for this, but you're literally just putting all the ingredients in and then adding the wet to the dry ingredients. Now, since we're not mixing this a ton, I opted to go with a powdered monk fruit erythritol blend, or just a powdered erythritol. The first two tests I did, I used Swerve because I have a bag upstairs for something else I was testing years ago, but it worked also with just the Swerve. 60 grams or about a half cup, maybe more like a third of a cup. The sweetness level on this is definitely up to you. The original called for 1 whole cup of sugar. So I did a half cup-ish, 60 grams of a powdered monk fruit erythritol blend, and then I opted to do a 1/4 cup of allulose, or 40 grams, because the thing with keto baked goods, especially with using coconut flour, is they tend to be dry. So it's already helpful that we're using oil, which makes things a little bit more moist at room temperature. But then also with no eggs in it, which is what we normally use for moisture, in place of doing the eggs, I did the allulose, because allulose holds in moisture to baked goods. So it's never a good thing to use all allulose in something like a cake, because it'll take a long time for it to not be wet anymore, and it'll probably get too dark on the outside by the time it cooks. But I use allulose to my advantage in certain recipes to give extra moisture. Like in my muffin recipe that I need to put extra flour in so that our stuff doesn't sink, ends up making it dry. So I put in a little bit of allulose to combat the dryness of having to add more coconut flour to something. So that's why I chose to do allulose in here. You can do any sweetener, really. You can do any amount of erythritol you want. You can probably even do less. You can do some stevia in erythritol. You can do a little bit of allulose and some stevia, but the cook times might change on it. So that was 40 grams. I had that much left in there of a 1/4 cup. So basically I'm doing 3/4 of a cup of sugar instead of 1 cup, but allulose is only 70% as sweet as sugar. So technically it's even less than 3/4 of a cup of regular sugar with the keto sweetener we're using. I'm gonna try to remember to add a little bit of stevia to this too, because for me, it wasn't quite sweet enough. And I'm probably gonna be eating this cake. Okay, next is the cocoa powder, which I kept the same, but I think it benefits from some black cocoa powder too, or just a really good dark rich cocoa. I just have the plain organic cocoa powder unsweetened from Anthony's. So if you have like a really good deep rich, dark cocoa powder, use that definitely. I'm gonna do half of this regular cocoa powder and half black cocoa powder. I just think it adds a richer flavor to this cake when it's a pretty simple tasting cake in general. So I'm gonna do 2 tablespoons of regular, which it will be 12 grams. I gotta pack it in though. And then 2 of the black cocoa powder, which be careful, this stuff gets everywhere. So this is the exact same as a Wacky cake, it just says unsweetened cocoa powder, making it a little bit more fancy. Now since we are using oil instead of salted butter, we're using a ½ teaspoon of salt. Then what helps give this a rise is using baking soda and vinegar to get that puffiness. So we need 1 teaspoon of baking soda. We didn't do anything different. It's what's in a regular recipe. And then for our flour mix, which is literally just my normal flour mix. I made this first cake when I did the experiment. It came out decent. Like, it just wasn't quite sweet enough. So I might eventually, don't quote me on this, make a keto flour that is good for certain applications. You'll never have a keto flour that works for everything. I should find that clip of an Elton Brown live stream because he does gluten-free baked goods, and he was talking about it on a live stream for Thanksgiving. And he literally said, gluten-free people are never happy because they want just a flour that, you know, it'll be good for every application. And he said that will never happen. So take it from Elton Brown if you don't take it from me. Same thing with keto baked goods. It's gonna be the same thing. But I think I could do like a fluffy keto flour mix, like ones that are good for all types of cake, like, you know, doing kind of a swap out for a regular recipe. I'll show you right here what I do. So this cake recipe called for 1.5 cups of flour. I literally went and took a cup of whey protein, and then I cut down the coconut flour because coconut flour is way more absorbent than wheat flour, regular flour. So I only do half the amount of coconut flour, which is supposed to be 1/4 cup, but I just do 30 grams. So I do a ratio of 80 grams of whey to 30 grams of coconut flour, and the cakes seem to turn out pretty much every time. And that's kind of how I've based this throughout a lot of the recipes I've done. But I got to go through and look at all my different cake recipes and kind of see if this works. Because I use different regular cake recipes every time I figure out a keto cake. But that's my usual way of doing it. Like, I see the amount of flour in something and I cut it down for my keto mix because I know coconut flour is more absorbent than regular flour. And then I always add xanthan gum depending on the structure I need for that particular baked good. I've even went as high as 110 grams to 30 grams, like in my cream cheese Danish recipe. And I believe I used my cream cheese Danish recipe to convert into my cinnamon roll recipe. But I had to add more structure to that, so I ended up adding the bamboo fiber and extra xanthan gum and all that stuff. That's why one flour mix is never gonna work for every single recipe. So 1 cup, again, why I like to just use a scale because it's really hard to get it in there. A little bit more. Then also in recipes, when I do this amount of flour, I always up the eggs and fat. Obviously there's no eggs in this recipe, but I did up the amount of oil. So that's another thing with keto baked goods. Like, you might be able to just swap the flours out in a recipe, but they're never gonna be as good if you don't know the fundamentals of keto baking and what does what in recipes. 30 grams of coconut flour, which, whoa, that's a big lump in there. About 1/3 cup. And then just 1/4 teaspoon of xanthan gum, because this is a smaller cake. In my big batches of cake that make a 9x13 or a bunch of cupcakes, I do a 1/2 teaspoon. Okay, so that's all your dry ingredients. You gotta give them all a whisk. And then there was a couple of different procedures. I looked up a bunch of different Wacky cake recipes. Some said just to do it right in your pan. Again, they all said not to grease it either, so that's kind of weird to me anyways. But I just opted to do it in the bowl like some of the other ones said. But I did the same procedure. It said to make 3 wells. So 1 big one, 2 small ones. And then we're gonna grab 1 cup of water, or you can do a 1/2 cup of coffee and a 1/2 cup of water. I'm gonna do that, but I'm just gonna use espresso powder in my 1 cup of water. And then we just need our oil, vanilla, and vinegar. Some recipes called for apple cider, some said regular vinegar. Doesn't really matter, I don't think. So I did a 1/2 tablespoon. That's what I did. I think any flavorings will work in this. Pretty much every original recipe I looked up had the exact same amounts of everything. So pretty much every recipe said 6 tablespoons of oil. I did a 1/2 cup, which is 8 tablespoons. So I only upped it by 2 tablespoons. You do a 1/2 cup. The thing with this is oil, especially if you use avocado oil, actually costs more than butter. but it suggests using vegetable oil. So that will be cheaper than avocado oil. So the nice thing about this cake is that it is, or was, dairy-free and egg-free. Obviously it's not dairy-free anymore because I'm using the whey protein, but it is lactose-free and egg-free still. I was determined, well, I guess not determined enough, to find a replacement for the whey protein. I tried 4 experiments, and the only one that worked with a 1-for-1 replacement was egg white protein powder. So then it makes it not egg-free anymore, but it's dairy-free. But it was pretty spongy, so I think you could probably dial back the egg white protein, like not do a whole 80 grams. But I didn't test it again because I threw out 4 cakes, and I can't say that that will work in every recipe I have. Just I know that it'll semi-work in this recipe. So 1 teaspoon of vanilla in one of the cavities. I literally get so discouraged because I literally found the best substitute to make gluten-free baked goods, and there's people that want replacement for it and I can't figure it out. But hopefully one of these days, I don't know. I looked up online, what's a good replacement? And they said casein, soy, pea, but I've tried pea protein with a bunch of other, proteins in it, and I didn't think it was very good and didn't really work. Beef protein didn't work, so I don't know. 1 tablespoon of vinegar in the last well. And then you just whisk it all up and add your water and or coffee. We're whisking all the coffee. Should be pretty thin, but thicken as it sits because of that coconut flour. Let's get up real good because we didn't sift or nothing. Get all those lumpies out. Oh, see, I almost forgot the stevia. I always do that though. It's already getting thicker because of that coconut flour. So when I say all ovens are different, this cooked in 30 minutes upstairs in a glass. That's another thing. Glass, metal, and silicone all bake at different times. Some bake faster than others. Glass takes more time. I believe silicone takes less time because this was way done at 28 minutes yesterday. So I'm going to do 12 turn 12, I think, because it was really done. You don't want to over bake any kind of keto baked goods because the longer you bake, the drier they get. So into the oven it goes. So pretty simple recipe to put together. There are caveats like every other keto baked good. Now frosting wise, I don't know what I'm gonna do still. For the one I did for my mother-in-law, I did my stabilized whipped cream with the cream cheese, and I made it coffee flavored. Coffee and caramel, it's delicious. I don't know if I wanna go through all that trouble. I might just make a whipped cream or a buttercream. I'm not sure yet. I have an entire cake and frosting playlist where I have my stabilized whipped creams, a chocolate frosting, I have just buttercream, cream cheese frosting, I have fluff, which I was debating on putting fluff on this cake, but it'll be delicious with any of my keto frostings. Okay, it's been 24 minutes. Seems almost done. So when a toothpick inserted in the middle comes out clean, it is done. So only 24 minutes in a silicone pan, when it took 30 minutes in a glass pan up in my home kitchen oven. So take with that what you will. That's why baking is so difficult to give directions when you're a recipe developer. But we're gonna let this cool completely, and I'm going to take it out and probably put it on this and pretend it's a cake server, because I like more frosting than just the top layer of frosting, and I want to frost the entire cake. And I think I'm gonna do a chocolate coffee stabilized whipped cream for the top of this cake. Okay, it is pretty cool to the touch, so I'm just loosening it a little bit. And I'm just gonna let it cool, and then we'll get on to our frosting. I have 4 ounces of cream cheese that are in front of warm air to soften up. Then we're just gonna do whipped cream, some cocoa powder and espresso powder, and sweetener of choice. Be back when that is cooled. Okay, Cake's cooled. I got cheese here. I whipped it up a little bit. 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder, 10-ish ounces of whipped cream, 30 grams of powdered monk fruit erythritol, 1 teaspoon of espresso powder. And whip this up, add some to here, whip that up, and once it's nice and light, I can just fold the rest of the whipped cream into here. I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract too. Start low. So, whipped cream. A lot of times this is what I do when I just want a little whipped cream at night for something. I'll put a tiny bit in my quart containers with my mixer whip attachment. A lot of times I'll add a collagen powder to get a quick whipped cream to like put on a brownie or something like that. Also, a lot of times just use stevia. Don't even use the powdered sweeteners at all. Add that in. I'm gonna whip that a little bit more, taste it for sweetness. And coffee flavor. Delicious. And we're gonna switch to this. I'm gonna add a teaspoon of vanilla, just eyeball it, and add some caramel extract. Super easy, quick, whoop, frosting. Don't do that. You give this a little mix first because that cocoa powder. Cocoa powder and powdered sugar are the 2 least favorite things in the kitchen to work with. Cover you. Whip that up. It's good. Keep adding cream. When you get down to the bottom, you might have to do another little whip on the cream, but sure it's all creeped at the bottom. It's a little bit less thick down there. Good to go. I'm gonna taste this one more time for sweetness because I didn't add any sweetener to the chocolate and cream cheese. Other than that, that's it for a quick frosting. It's gonna be delicious. So if you cut this cake into 9, it's 1 carb per slice. So adding the whipped cream and cream cheese is gonna add more carbs than say like a buttercream, because buttercream is just butter and sugar alcohols basically. But it's a pretty low carb cake. Needs a little bit more sweetness now. Probably actually could do with a little bit of salt too because of the bitterness. And cream cheese does have a little bit of salt in it. It's better. Now it tastes like coffee and chocolate. All on top. A little bit bigger spatula. So I did 10 ounces, so it's gonna be 8 carbs for the cream and 4 for the cream cheese. So still only 2 net carbs for a 1/9 of this cake. Not too bad. That's what a nutrition label would say anyways. They always round to the nearest and it wouldn't be even a half a carb, so. I hate square cakes. One of those things I hate because I hate doing the corners. Doing it rustic. Trying to. I'm a perfectionist though, so it's always hard for me to do rustic. That's it. No, we used just about all of it. Save that little bit to pipe happy birthday or if it's, you know, some kind of celebration. Let's give this cake a taste. Excited. Okay. 1/9 is actually going to be a pretty decent sized slice, I think. There. Super dark and fudgy. With that black cocoa powder in there, makes it super nice and dark. Deep, rich chocolate flavor with that espresso in there too. That brings out the chocolate flavor also. Pretty moist cake and pretty simple to put together. I say anything chocolate is good chocolate. Do I still prefer my original chocolate cake better? Yes, but super easy and convenient. I'll probably be sending some of this over to my mother-in-law's house because they enjoyed the cake. I definitely don't need another whole one, but it is delicious. And with the coffee and chocolate, my favorite. So thanks to a subscriber who mentioned this when I asked about different cake recipes in my gianduja recipe video. It's definitely a fun one to figure out. and super delicious. So I hope you guys enjoy this super easy chocolate cake recipe and try it out for yourself. Let me know what frosting you're gonna pair with it down in the comments below. Don't forget to check out my Amazon shop page. The link is down in the description box below, along with the blog link to the full recipe. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I'll be back with many more keto, low-carb, healthy meals, desserts, and snack recipes. Bye, guys. Happy keto baking!